So, how are you doing today, Rajat?
Great, doing great. I hope you're
Excellent.
doing well as well.
We are all doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. Um, I just read through your profile, and I just wanted to know, with such an extensive experience in the industry, I'm sure you have plenty of experiences to share. Uh, let's begin this with one of the most memorable, events or milestones that you've achieved in your journey so far.
Right. So, the first thing is whenever I look back at it, it's funny because, I still feel that I just came back and just joined the industry in India because I used to study in the US and then work in the US. So I was there for almost 10 years. And then 2007 was when I came back to India and joined the aluminum extrusion industry, so to speak.
Okay.
And very soon, the 2008 global crisis, the housing crisis, which started in the US, had a domino effect, as you would know, throughout the world.
Absolutely.
And the Indian construction industry, the Indian building industry, and of course, as a result, the Indian aluminum industry was, greatly affected. And this was the time when the then owner, who was my father, was planning a lot of investment in various expansion in terms of capability, in terms of capacity. And this led to a mismatch of cash flows. And very soon, I think around 2011, we found that the unit was, declared a non-performing asset by the bankers.
Okay.
And in my entire career, I had grown up, believing that, okay, there's a great industry and there's a great company and my father's running it and one day I will inherit it. So I don't need to work that hard. I don't need to study that hard. I can take the liberty of, missing a few classes in college, all of that. But, it came as a rude shock and it was completely unexpected. So then I think my real learning started, that when the crisis hit, when I realized that, we don't even have visibility into the next month, into the next week, what's going to happen? How are we continue operations? How are we going to continue to pay everyone's salary? How are we going to survive? Right.
Right.
So that's when we got into it. It was like swimming, right? So my career in India sort of started off like how someone learns, which is you just throw them in the pool, and as they are drowning, the best of them comes out. So, I always correlate my experience with swimming. And what happened here was that gave me the experience, right, of dealing with worker union, dealing with bankers, dealing with government bodies, dealing with investment bankers, getting foreign visitors to come to India, having a collaboration with them. And that's how we ended up with this venture with YKK AP that we have today. So I think that was a great learning experience that I went through. And luckily, I went through the worst a business person can go through or an entrepreneur can go through at the beginning of their careers. So having seen the worst, all else is now, cannot be worse than what I've already gone through. So that gives me the hope and the motivation and also the excitement that, whatever happens next is going to be great.
Yeah, it cannot go lower than that. So you've seen the worst, and
Exactly.
great. So
the worst in terms of business, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense only, I meant. Okay. So, Rajat, you've been part of many ventures, entrepreneurial projects. We would like to actually know, how do you identify which one is the venture that you'd like to get into, or a profitable one, and how do you cull out the redundant ones and choose the good ones?
Honestly speaking, and this may sound, as you asked the question now, I was thinking through it, it sounds selfish. But really, all the products that I launched or all the ventures that I got involved in were for very personal reasons, right? And I always believe that if there is something that I find useful, there is a very good chance that there is at least one person out there who also finds it as useful as I have, right? Now, for example, one of the first ventures that I started, which I did not launch, was something called My First, right? And
I'm
this
sorry,
was,
repeat that.
it's,
What is it?
it's called My Firsts,
My firsts. Okay.
right? And this was an app to capture your first smile, your first paycheck, your first date, your first anything, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. And by the time it took me 1.5 years to program it, to make it into an app. And by the time I launched it, Facebook launched something similar where you could capture your first moments of everything. Right. But at least I got motivated that what I thought is
Mm-hmm.
also something that a giant IT organization is also thinking on the same lines. So, there is a huge market for this. Then the next app which I launched is called RSVP, which is also on my LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
And this, I was finding it once I moved back to India and started working in India, I was finding it very difficult to, keep following up on emails, because there's
Okay.
this thing where you send an email to someone, and if he or she does not reply, how do you remember that, oh, you now need to follow up? It's been 3 days or it's been 4 days.
Right.
So I used to struggle a lot with that. And then I came up with a need for myself called RSVP, which I then launched on the Mac App Store and got a ton of downloads, right? So I think entrepreneurs really need to figure out two things. One is it something that really solves their personal need? Because if it just solves a worldly need, but not their need, they will never be as passionate or as driven.
Okay.
Right. So I think it's very important to invent something or start something which, first of all, solves a very personal need. Right. Once you identify that, the next thing is to allocate the right resources to it, whether it is the resource of time or money, but most importantly, realizing, what your shortcomings are, and then outsourcing those bits to professionals. For example, I know that I'm not a coding expert. So the coding part I outsource to someone, right? I know I'm very good at making taglines. So maybe making the taglines I kept with me, right? So once you identify a need, then is resource allocation, and then realizing what you are good at, what you are not good at, and then the things that you're not good at, just outsource.
That's something that I'm sure all the young entrepreneurs listening to you will keep in mind.
Yeah, and now with tons of outsourced service websites like Fiverr.com or Guru.com, outsourcing bits of the value chain has become that much more easier.
Okay. So I move to my next question. I believe collaborating and networking is like one of the major components of success in business, So is there any piece of advice that you'd like to give to, aspiring entrepreneurs onto how to go about, because I think there's just too much of social media, and this human element is also
reducing.
Yeah. So
I mean, face to face. Yeah, I mean, in my experience, there were two things that really stood out, and there were two things that really helped me connect and grow as an individual and also professionally, right? One was to always hear someone out, which means to always give someone a chance, right? Because what happens, for example, with me, once I came back to India and started working at this organization, I used to get many phone calls and many emails saying that, I'm about to retire in so and so year, and once I come back to India, would you be willing to, hire me as a consultant or as a mentor or some employee in some part of the world, in Brazil or in US, within the same industry, who are about to retire? They're saying that, I'm looking for a gig post-retirement. Would you be interested in, talking to me about it? What happens is, I've seen more often than not, it is very easy to just dismiss these kinds of multiple people who keep reaching out to you, right? Because you say, I don't have the time to deal with them. It's just a waste of my time. It's a waste of resource to go through so many people and reply. Right. But I found out that, for every 10 such communication that comes your way, at least one holds value.
Absolutely.
Right? And at the initial stages of your career, you might not have the experience or the subconscious element to, filter out which ones are more authentic than the other. So you need to start responding to anything and everything that comes your way, right? Okay. And somewhere in that haystack, you will find value. So I think one, that is very important. And the second thing is, this element of face-to-face, which COVID has taught me, and especially as a director, I don't need to be present in meetings. I don't need to be present in many discussions, right? We have a huge sales team. We have 9 offices in India, but I still travel 20 days a month, right? Mm-hmm. So I average about 10 flights a month. I mean, the year before COVID, I was checking, I did 140 flights a year, right? And even the family that I come from, a business family, so they have always believed that, meeting customers is the, how to say, is the, I forget the word, but, that is what really matters. That is what really counts, right? So unless you are meeting customers face to face, unless you're hearing their feedback directly, right, unfiltered through multiple offices or layer branches, right, you will never really understand what they want, right? And what they want and what your organization can provide helps you define the organization's purpose as well as meet your customers' goals. So I think, that element of being out there, not having a specific, not waiting for a specific agenda or a specific problem or a specific reason to visit a customer, right? That is very, very important.
Okay. So now I'd like to know, if you were asked to give one piece of advice to the young generation that's getting into entrepreneurial projects, and often you face doubts, you face uncertainties, and how do you, what kind of advice would you want to give to the young aspirants?
Yeah, I mean, see, when it comes to facing doubt, when it comes to facing uncertainty, as we said that, feeling scared or feeling afraid is not wrong, right?
Right.
Of course, if you are doing something challenging, if you are doing something new, these are natural reactions that your body goes through, right? So embracing them and understanding that what is happening for a reason is very, very important, rather than rejecting the feeling of despair or rejecting the feeling of, feeling insecure. You need to be able to get through that, right? You need to be able to understand that these are just steps in the process that you have now taken, or the journey that you have now started. However, what is most important, which I feel personally, which is missing with most younger generation this time, is that they are unable to, focus on the right priorities at the right time. Entrepreneurship is very important. Building a business, building a career, helping yourself, helping the economy, the local economy or the country's economy, all that is very important. But so is your health, right? I have seen many of my friends, many of my relatives who were, young, who started their entrepreneurial journey at a younger age, like 21 or 24 or 25, without giving due importance to fitness, without giving due importance to diet, without giving due importance to the number of hours they sleep, trying to create something of value. But that will only be for a very short term. So my one advice, if you ask me, is to have, a good rhythm in your life, to have a good schedule in your life, to allocate your time and effort efficiently between all 3 spheres, which is health, family, and work.
Very, very useful advice, I must say, because I think somewhere in this race, people are overlooking the other 2 factors and only paying attention to work.
Right.
So thank you so much. And my last question now to you, Rajat, is that as the president of the Aluminium Extruder Council of India, what do you think are some of the most critical issues that this industry is facing?
So I think when it comes to, aluminum extruder, the aluminum extrusion industry, most of the issues that we are facing are not dissimilar to the other industries. But since I have this platform and since this is related to entrepreneurs, one thing that I noticed, which is the biggest difference between my working life in the US versus in India, is the collaboration between industry and educational institutions. Right. So, of course, I can go on government policies and lack of manpower and lack of infrastructure, but many things are improving, right? And most of these things are not directly in our control because we need to liaison with other government departments and government bodies and industries. But at least as individual entrepreneurs, as directors or owners or responsible managers of the organizations that we belong to, one thing that we ourselves can do without depending on anyone is immediately reach out to the educational institutions in your area, whether it's in your city or state or in your region. Try and figure out how we can collaborate with those educational institutions. Can we set up a joint R&D division? Can we have those professors come to your organization and do classes or research papers? For example, at Bhoruka, we have now tied up with 3 universities in Karnataka, right? Okay. So there's VVCE, there's SJC, there's NIE. All 3 are famous for chemical, mechanical, and industrial engineering. And we have signed MOUs with all 3 where any student, any faculty can come to our organization at any time without pre-approvals and start doing research projects on a topic that they feel interested in, or ask us for data for a project that they're already working on, because a lot of projects require live industrial data, which they don't have access to. So we have gone forward and we have said that please use our organization, as a test lab. You can utilize whatever data you want. You can come whenever you want. You can study the equipment. So I think that kind of collaboration is key to building the next generation of companies, key to building world-class capabilities, right? And key to success of not only India, but your industry and you as an entrepreneur and as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, for students also, it would be hands-on experience with the equipment and everything. Yeah. So great. So it was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for taking out time. Sure. And have a wonderful day ahead.
Great. I hope this at least helps one person out there. And if it does help even one person, I think both of us have done a great job today.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.